All right, welcome back, everyone. We have our last tie one on Tuesday tonight. Scott is going to be tying up his original double bunny. So it should be very interesting, very informative. Thanks for joining for all of these Tuesdays for the past couple months. We've had a lot of fun, and we'll be bringing them back. We're going to take a little break, but we're going to bring them back and cover the whole rest of the store. So if you guys have any comment or any topic ideas you want to hear about, just shoot us a message, send us a comment, give us a call, stop in the store. We'd love to see you. So Scott, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Welcome, kids, and all the other people that don't want to grow up. Had a little birthday today. Happy birthday, Double Bunny. You're 33 years old. It's like, oh my God, it's hard to believe. He's older than Claire. you know, older than a bunch of people that are, probably watching tonight. But if get hit back in the head by some big streamer, I'm probably one of the guys to blame. So originally the Double Bunny came from it was like 1988. Trip to Belize with my good friend John Hanlon and down Placentia, fishing with Charles Leslie. And it's funny, Charles Leslie, all day long he sings this song. It's like, a wise old bird is a pelican. His mouth can hold more than his belly can. Well, yeah, they're in the Tarpon Flats. But we're trying to catch some cudas as well as the bonefish and the poons. And if you fly fish for barracuda, they can be frustrating. They're really easy to catch on a spin rod, right? You can't move the fly fast enough. So the two flies we're having the best luck with, I had some kiwi muddlers. They tied on saltwater hooks. They were about that size. And then good old fish hair barracuda fly, or the braided barracuda fly, which has this kind of motion. So trying to figure out how to combine the two things together, the pulsating of the rabbit and the undulation of the hair. I didn't have a lot of rabbits, and howler monkeys didn't want to give any fur up in Belize, so I had to wait till I got home, and that spring I started playing with it. And I had a big basis in rabbit fur. I mean, I tied, I don't know, bazillions of Jack Dennis kiwi muddlers for the shop in the old days. We used to have the high-tech accounting where I get $1 a fly, so whenever I needed money, I just tied a bunch of flies. We had those. Original double bunnies were huge. I'll show you. I couldn't find like one of them in my box. I think I gave a bunch away. But here's time with Jack Dennis and friends, 1993. Double bunny at the bottom. I mean, they were tied a lot differently. I mean, I had that there with like a Tiemco 8089 or like a big Mustad 3366, kind of like bass bug hook. On the back, there was a stinger hook, usually like a big scud hook, or sometimes I got lazy and spot bait hooks. They were already snelled and tied them on. I mean, super big. There wasn't like doll eyes and molded eyes then. So I took reflective tape and actually took a hole punch to punch the pupil and cut out the round part and then put on a piece of black tape, and then we glued those on. And when we first fished those, it was like me, Jeff Currier. I think Currier, God, this was 20 years ago. He's up to like 34 different species on the double bunny, including a world record channel catfish out of Elephant Butte Reservoir in New Mexico, and then Carter Andrews, the fishing machine, and then Gary the Wedge Wilmot. And we were like being up at Jackson Lake Dam and couldn't do any wrong. Just throw them out and have lake trout doing backflips over the flies. They've since kind of evolved, and they're definitely smaller now. I'd say like most of my fish tend to be about 3 inches long. I usually find that that's big enough to get the fish interested. If I'm fishing for pike or something like that, or big snook, I might fish some really big ones. But smaller size is easier to cast. And a lot of people ask you, what kind of line do you fish with, or what kind of rod? First, if you're throwing stuff this size, don't use a 5-weight. You're going to hurt yourself and all your people around you. I used to throw a 7, and I like a 7 with more of a midsection. Got some older Scots, or like a Scott Flex would be a great rod, rather than the super fast tippy rods. And I've shooting head junkie. I fish those quite a bit, but for fishing down deeper, something like that's an SA Titan sink tip, which is overweight. It's basically a pre-built shooting head that will work well and help get the fly down. One of my favorite lines, though, because they're easy to cast, especially if you're fishing out of a boat. The fly doesn't really have time to sink. There's a clear intermediate line on a classic Valentine reel. There's an end here somewhere.
Wayne Llewellyn says, "Hi there, Scott."
All right, Wayne. Funny, when the guys was talking about seeing you on the Facebook listing page and saying Wayne's meticulous and Sanchez is ridiculous. But it's a clear intermediate line. The cool thing with these, they cast like a champ. I mean, they're really, really skinny. They're really slick. So you don't have to false cast much. And they'll break the water surface, which from fishing for a boat is fine. A lot of times on the end of that, I'll use like a sinking leader, which is basically the 6-foot ones are more manageable throughout a boat. There's 5 inches per second, 7 inches per second. You want to buy the spay ones because the trout ones only have a 12-pound leader, and I might be fishing rope for a leader. I mean, a lot of OX, fish something heavy. And, it's going to kind of streamer theory. A lot of people think fish eat streamers only because of food. A lot of it's aggression. I mean, look at fall brown trout. Why does that color work? It's the same color as another brown trout. They're chasing each other out of the way. So definitely has some aggression as well as the food thing. We're seeing I've kind of started shrinking the size of my bunnies somewhat. And they've evolved over the years. I mean, earlier ones, this is some Dan Bailey ones. We just have the molded eyes on there, lead weight underneath. I'm using that was a Dairiki 700 3X long hook, or 4X long, I should say. And I tie it on the front half of the hook so you still get the fluctuation. I don't have to use a double hook, which are kind of a pain in the butt. And I'll go over this later too, but I think sometimes harmful to the smaller fish. And then I started tying a lot of them with cone heads. I just like the way they look. And also how they sink. And there's some other ones I've tied. This is from my new generation of trout flies with heart-shaped beads for the head, which makes an instant epoxy head to stick the eyes on there. It'll go right over the eye of the hook. So there's been some different incarnations. And there's other people have had their variations. I mean, Will Dornan started tying them with the dumbbell eyes. And this had a lot of times we had light bright when they were coming from Montana fly. It's a different angle. Whitlock hair sculpin, basically a double bunny with a little trim job on the bottom. Strung out bunny from Spirit River. But that says I'm kind of to blame for a lot of stuff in Dalai Lama, which is an unglued one. One glue, I'm a glue junkie anyway, is originally I'd glue these together with barge cement, which has certain liabilities. It's a pretty good buzz, not really great for you though, in an enclosed area. And the other problem with barge cement too, if you ever use solvent-based contact cement, if you don't use the jar right away, it's going to dry out. I mean, it's just so volatile that, if you don't use it within a week, it's done. So I was looking for a less nasty, and this is called Valitaire Mender. And I guess these are popular enough now that Hairline Dubbing actually sells this commercially, as well as the hardware store. It's pure rubber tree latex. You can buy this in a 55-gallon drum to build an outfitter's tent if you want. But the nice thing about this, less nasty unless you're allergic to latex. But it also doesn't set up as quick, so if you make a mistake, you have a chance to fix it. So let's go on to Double Bunny's offspring. So it's with 32 years, 33 years. I mean, rabbits do what they do, and there's going to be a lot of children. So let's break out the Hassenpfeffer Hospital Maternity Ward and see what comes out. Oh my God, dear, do you been hanging out with the antelope buck again?
Wait, show it again.
You are having to say an animal, a jackalope. But let's do a baby bunny. Where some of this kind of came from, besides just trying to downsize stuff, is my buddy Mick Hall from Australia. Been here at the One Fly a bunch of times. And actually, the other thing, the double bunny one that the Jacksonville one fly 3 years in a row. First year it was Carter Andrews telling Walter Ungerman to fish it, and he did and won. The second year, Walter tied a downsized one, not quite like my mini bunny, but similar. And actually got to guide him that year. He's guy's a machine. He just kind of worked the runs real efficiently. And then the last year, Andrews, which is, if I am the vent of the bunny, he's the disciple. I mean, was throwing one that big when they'd had a water fluctuation and cleaned up down in the, I think, South Park to Pritchard. Well, let's play at the baby bunny. Let's look into hooks. A lot of times, like the 3X, 4X long streamer hooks, and get the smaller flies, don't have a lot of gap. And one of the biggest thing with bigger fish, they have hard mouths. And if you don't, a lot of times, if you don't hook them here, they're difficult to hook. You know, the mandible, it's just hard to get around. So I tend to like to use a little bit shorter shank hook, but a little bit bigger gap. I mean, one option here, and I could do this with a smaller one. I mean, there's no longer, but Umpqua does a hook similar to this. I'm forgetting the model number. I think it's a U201. It's like a 2X long streamer hook, so not quite as long as a big streamer hook. So kind of length of about a size 8, but with a size 4 gap. So a little more bite to it. So I might tie it on that. I haven't decided. I never tie the same fly twice and get bored. Or maybe we should do a jig hook. What do you guys think? A jig hook or a regular hook? What do we want? We'll make this fly right upside down. Let's do the jig hook for kicks. So I use bunny bits, some pteromender, a cone, my favorite heavy metal lead. And they're going to do something a little bit different. I gave you materials list that said like 210 denier. I use 140. I mean, anything that size range works fine. And then my custom glue lid here. A little archery fletching cement. A little less messy there. Some high quality disposable bodkins. Let's grab a cone. What color cone do we want? We want gold or we want silver? Do the gold. Let's slip the cone on. And we could slip it all the way up front, but it looks kind of fugly. You can't have fugly flies.
I think that term is from the movie Mean Girls.
It's been around for a long time. You know, it's a euphemism for something I shouldn't say. At least not in public. I'm going to actually put a little, my high quality super glue. I'm going to build a little thread dam so it just stays there. So it just kind of, aesthetically it looks a little bit better. Plus I think it helps seat it. You could use a big bead like a 3/16 bead. There's 7/32 is the next one up if you wanted. Thing I like about the cone, I like the shape of it, but the other thing I like about it too is later on when we put eyes on, it's going to help hold the eyes in place. So we're just building up a big thread dam here, just see if it stops your cone. Nothing real scientific. You could build a little thread base here if you wanted. So kind of build up here. Let's do a half hitch or insta whip finish. Little goo. Got to wedge it in place. Next, we're going to get some lead. Two reasons to do this. It's going to actually weight the fly, obviously. Let's just flip this over here. Get this vise a little more secure. I think I'm going to do this here for you. Probably easier for you to see. I actually didn't build up quite enough thread there. Bad Sanchez, bad Sanchez.
Well, we got a bunch of people watching. Robert McCready's watching from Rigby, Idaho. Brad Zahard from Cleveland, Ohio. Ron Quisnell from Burley, Idaho. Chris Norbrook from Jackson, Wyoming. And Mindy Cooley from Alpine.
All right, Mindy. And Muggsy, is Muggsy watching? And Brad, you still in the investment banking business, or did you decide to be irresponsible and be a fly fisherman? So we got that wedged in there now. Let's grab some lead. This is 035. I pretty much only use 035 wire. If I get stuck and can't find 035, I use 030. To me, it's like, I'd rather just make less wraps. I'm lazy.
Mindy said that Muggs is taking notes.
All right. Muggs, need the ear massage. Look for, I'm not going to be here tomorrow for you. Next Wednesday. We've got a date, dog. And one kind of important thing, or very important thing, when you do the leads and cones, if you've smashed streamers with cones into rocks, which I hope you do, because that's where you're fishing them, right? If this gets pushed back, it's done. You can never make it stay on there. So add a little more super glue and build up a thread base to keep that lead from pushing back and keeping the whole body from pushing back. I should say on these smaller bunnies, originally, I said my buddy Mick used squirrel. So just, squirrel bunny hybrid. They do that stuff too. Add some squirrel bits here. Or the other thing you can do too is just look for really skinny rabbits. Or really short hair, to call them Arizona rabbits. The fly tar in all of us always wants to get the more for the most. And actually, a thinner section actually works better because you get enough action, but it doesn't weigh as much. And don't do this at home because you're not a trained professional. I guess I gotta hold this between my knees. I don't know if you can see that. And just set it so it's just barely open. Nice little bunny strip. Done that a couple times. I have one that Rob McLean gave me that's got 6 razor blades. I can do a bunch at a time. And then kind of the best size for this, if you're going to buy stuff that's pre-stripped, I just have whole rabbit hides. I just do too many rabbit flies. Is if you can find some zonker strips that happen to be cut a little bit wider. They're usually about 1/8 of an inch, which is a little bit narrow. They'll work for this fly. Or they have the Magnum ones, which are more 1/4 to 3/16, but somewhere around the eighth, or I say quarter minus is probably going to be the easiest to do this with. Next, I'm going to show you what not to do.
Brad said he got out of investments and into education. Summer's off to fish more.
All right. People have been around me very long know I hate dubbing loops. I mean, why would I spend more time to make my fly look ratty? And I want kind of, this fly is going to be inverted like this, right? So everybody thinks that putting dumbbell eyes only or weighting the fly on technically the bottom of the fly here is going to make it flip over. There's more than that. You need more resistance here. Basically, inside the bend of the hook needs to be more hydrostatic. Underneath it needs to be hydrodynamic, right? It's like you take a ball and you throw a tail on it, it's always going to go ball first down. So a lot of times what I do is I do what I call clump dubbing, but I'll show you the bad dubbing loop method, and then I'll show you how we can make it go a lot quicker and allows me to do more things with it. So I just cut some bunny bits off. Gave Los Bunny a haircut. If I was home, I'd throw that in my coffee grinder and just make dubbing.
Are you serious?
Yeah. That's how they make dubbing. You just shred it up fur. And there's a little ice dub. Pearlescent-ish. I mean, this is light gray. I mean, it's close enough to pearlescent. It's a high quality coffee grinder. Nice blend. And I like having this where it kind of shows through. So the normal way for normal people, I'm not normal, you make a dubbing loop, right? And you feed the bunny in there. Feed the bunny. Basically build a bunny hackle. Do a short one here. Do a twistola. And then you would fluff it out. If you got more rabbit in it, you'd do that. You can fold it if you want. That seems like work to me. So what Uncle Ches does, and this is from tying too many deer hair flies, take a clump, spin it in, make a loose wrap, and you're getting the same effect, but God, it's quick. The other thing is I can actually alternate. If I just want to put a big wad of flash in here, put a chunk of red for a broken spleen or something, I could do that. I can make it barred pretty damn quick. I'm not going to really jam it all the way up in the cone. And then I have a lot of brushes and combs that don't work for my hair. There's a wire dog brush. This is a metal comb. I think my metal comb's sitting at home on my bench because I'm tying some Gartside marabou streamers. That's pretty sporty there. That'd probably catch a fish alone. It's my clumped up in the leech, minus the tail. Or you could use your scissor tips. Most of the time you're going to break a bobbin doing that, or bodkin, I should say. And then I can give it a little haircut if I want. But essentially I have super short bunny. But it's a lot easier than a dubbing loop. Next I'm going to do is going to take this. And this is kind of important. I'm going to jam this up in the cone. So I want to cut a point. And this is an inverted fly. And this is sometimes where non-inverted or a non-rotary vise is actually a little bit easier. So I can jam it up in there. You're going to end up with a little bit of a gap. There, that's going to be fine, so eyeballs are going to cover that. Next thing we're going to do is impel this. So bring it slightly back. Probably been better if I'd crimped the barb. Hope you guys can see that. Scream at me if you don't. Or scream a text at me. Let's flip that back over again. Starting to look like a baby bunny, right? And here's how I'm going to cut the tail. Make a little bit longer, but I make a little bit taper. Let's show you what not to do. Boom. That looks like hell. Bad blunt ends, bad haircut. So what I do is I slip my scissors in here, barely open, and I cut a little bit of a taper. Get more of a point. It looks a little bit nice. It's more tapered. But the other thing too is this one won't foul because it's shorter. Is having less mass at the back and the hide tends to make stuff flop around less. Let's do some eyeballs. I think we're kind of done with the thread. If I wanted to, I could throw some flash in here. I think there's enough flash with what we got going on.
You got a couple comments. Tammy Breedy says, I love heart beads. And Kuni Masuda says, hi Scott, your friend Kuni Masuda. I like your time-saving approach for a functional fly tying.
All right, thanks. And there's that heartbeat thing. Is it Tammy over in Cody, a few of those? They're hard to find. You find the red ones, obviously, but I got a stash of like some.
And Neil says, you're a true master, Neil Henderson.
All right.
David Ocasio is watching, and he says, what does Sanchez know about haircuts? Nothing. He knows nothing.
Neil, you guys in the snook yet? So we're gonna grab a little bit of glue, and this thing got kind of coagulated. I remember once squirting this out in the class, and like I sprayed this guy's brand new shirt. It felt really bad. Like that cat, the ketchup bottle will blow up. So use one that's not sticky like that. Disposable bodkins. So you can just pull this up or down. Run a little of that glue in there. And you can just smash it. I mean, sometimes it's easier with that jig hook in the way to do that. Put some eyeballs on. We'll do this one just with some goop, and then the other one I'll do with like some UV so you can see two different angles on it. Oops. Damn. So probably the best thing to glue eyes on, or most appendages you put on flies, like the jackalope, antlers. This is like E6000, shoe goo, goop are all pretty much the same thing. This is maybe a little thinner and it's got a little nicer point on it. So you got to kind of peel this off, and then the way to deal with this glue too is hold the bottle upwards. Because that way you got, I don't know what it is, the evaporation or the pressure just makes it want to bubble out. And if it's upside down, it's going to be worse. Let's lay a wad there. And a wad there. I'll grab Johnny lid. Good year. Kids, you didn't see that. And we want gold eyes or we want red eyes?
Red.
Red. Beady red eyes. Evil demonic bunny. So this is about a 7/32, 3/16 size will fit with this cone. I'll let you tell me if you think the eyes make a difference. This would be like your optometrist. No eye? Eye. No eye? Eye. It definitely changes it from a chunk of fur to a living organism, doesn't it? And what I found with the original double bunnies is I didn't get more stripes with having eyes, but I tend to get less short stripes. And you look in nature, there's a bunch of fish that have OCOI, the false eyes, redfish with the dots on the tail, a shad, peacock bass. My theory there is, if you get bit in the ass, it sucks. If you get bit in the head, you're dead. So there's the Jig baby bunny. Dylan, Jack, that would be like Snookorama for Sanibel. He would definitely chow that on the beach or over at was it Dingle? It's the national park there. He's got kind of a nose on him. People are going to make fun of him, but there's a baby bunny. Now back to the hospital. Who comes out next? It's Dose Double Bunny. It's a jointed double bunny. So for years, people always ask me, like, why did you try to join a double bunny? Well, the fact that rabbit flexes when it's wet and pulsates, it's really pretty articulated. But I'm also kind of lazy. I like to lose flies. And fishing streamers, right, you're going to go through a bunch in a day. It was kind of getting my high horse earlier. I think a lot of the streamers were fishing 2-3 hooks, especially the bigger hooks, are probably not the best thing for smaller fish. When they eat it, they definitely get hooked in more than one spot. So, and I think most of the time, as a generalization, most predatory fish tend towards head hit the flies if they're actually going to eat it. If they're just nipping at it, chase away, that doesn't matter. So I was trying to figure out a way to articulate stuff, and I've done a fair amount of saltwater fishing and fishing big poppers and stuff where a lot of times you use hook extensions because the the long shank popper hooks suck on big fish. I mean, they're just going to open up on you. And so a lot of times using a split ring. And then sometimes add some topwater plugs for throwing this, spin rod or a casting rod, where I take off one hook, but you still wanted to have some motion in the back with its rubber legs, whatever. So I had some split rings, and these are split ring connectors, right, that you see on all the lures, right? Some VMC ones. You open them up, and that's how the hook goes on a Rapala or spoon. So these would work for this method, but we're not really necessarily looking for strength on this one, since I don't have a hook in the back. So, I mean, these aren't outrageous. They're probably like 20 cents each. But when is it, Michael's or one of those places, I found some jewelry hooks, or loops. And they're just the loops like they used to like connect, bracelet chains together with. You just open them up and bend them back. And these will actually work fine. So it's kind of the sleeves ball articulation. Grab some, maybe we'll use white for the, we can use white for the belly. I'll use the same colors I had. Let's strip out another chunk of bunny. The trick of doing this, just set it so the blade's not very deep. That way you only ruin your pants, not your leg, your femoral artery, or anything. I'm rather fond of my femoral arteries. Ah! So, bunny bit. And this can be prep, and I can show you some pretty cool stuff you can do here. So let's grab the ring. Let's grab the Valor mender. Let's grab another ring. I don't pick up stuff off the floor. I can't find it, especially in my tying room. Cut a little bit of a point here. And let's lop off some fur. There you got naked hide there to go through. So we're going to thread this through the ring. This will be a little tricky to see. Hold on a second, I grab a pair of forceps. This is definitely a lot easier to see this way. So I generally try to do, I says, if this isn't really a strength factor, is there's going to be a break in the ring. That's just how they build them. They fold them around and cut them off, right? If you want to make it a little bit stronger, if you thread it through where that hole in the ring is, it's going to be a little bit stronger. So nothing kind of crazy. You threaded the needle. Little Valor mender. I'm going to want to do the naked part of the rabbit and then a little bit down the hide. And then it's just contact cement. Shazam! And I kind of screwed up and got a little bit of tear through there. That's easy to fix. Let's pull it back, or I'll just chop it off. And I don't want that hair sticking forward. So that's pretty easy. Those scissors. What amazing tools. So if I was to do a bunch of these, just do a bunch of these ahead of time, right? Got pre-built tail. So you do this now or later. Let me show you some other options for tails while we got the stuff out. you might get a kick out of. And this is really cool because they could do an articulated leech or an articulated woolly bugger with an extra 30 seconds rather than most of those being twice the amount of time. Let's grab some marabou. Marabou works great for this. Let's grab an olive one. Why not make it double? Let's make it more fun. And you just take them and try to make a two-tone tail. Just take and break it off. And here again, I hope you're not allergic to latex. Grab the right one that doesn't have the goop or the super glue on it. And if you just super saturate the marabou, get a little point on it. Shazam! You got a super woolabugger tail. And you can do it with foam. I've done it with foam where you can actually do an extended body like the old LaFontaine flex flies, or you know, grab some braid and just do a horse hitch through there and then just comb it out. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. But it's a pretty cool way to do articulation that doesn't take a whole lot of time. And Sanchez be lazy, so that's where we want to do it. So let's grab a hook. Kind of go and switch hooks here. I'm going to go for a little bit bigger hook, but still pretty big gap. This is a Gamakatsu. What's that? SP11 3LH. And it's technically a saltwater hook, but
Dave asked why no tail hook.
I don't want to hurt the fish. I don't think you need more than one hook. My feeling on it. This isn't. I think it's safer for the fish, and it's safer for your buddy when he's grabbing the fish in the net. Because I've had that happen to them before, where 20-inch brown trout and your friend were kind of connected together on a separate hook. So that's my feeling on it. You know, you certainly could do a separate hook, but I think overall you better not. So a fairly big gap hook. I mean, that's going to have some bite to it. But it's kind of a standard wire for a saltwater hook. We do gold on the last one, do silver on this one. How's that sound? And this one won't be inverted. And we'll grab the lead here. In bad commercial tying habits, I probably would have pre-coned and pre-leaded all the hooks. And it's certainly easier to build a bunch of tails at one time and just have them sitting there when you start out. So what are we going to do first? We need to secure the lead, right, so it doesn't slop around on us. Push back. Build a pretty good thread base there. All right. Now it's going to be connector time. So with articulated flies, I mean, and I could do a whole thing. I did a whole article on this once on the different varieties of articulated extended body streamers, and there's different purposes. This one's going to be articulated where you get free hinging. That's going to have the most action on it. One of the most important things is that you use a material that's stiff enough that you have a big open ring. If the ring gets collapsed, it's not going to move as freely. This is some high quality Eagle Claw 30-pound mono. You could use wire, you know, fishing wire. That's that Senyo, which is kind of that wire cable too. A lot of times I just really use cheap wire. I'll use the mono here. Sometimes though, if you're using glass beads, it's helpful to use wire, because if you smack the bead, sometimes they'll crack. So I'm going to secure this in the mono. And normally if I was doing a second hook on the back, I'd be very, very worried about this being secure, especially on a time like a 8-aught time and fly. So it'd actually probably come forward and then fold it back or actually super glue it. I'm not too worried about on this. It's got enough security here. Boom. And I'm gonna grab a bead. You can use metal bead, you can use glass bead. Adds color, pizzazz, but the biggest thing the bead does, it acts like a ball bearing. And it also extends your flex point further back so it's less prone to wrap around the hook. It makes a big difference there. What do you want? You want ruby red or... This paint's kind of jumping out at me today. It's kind of like be the baby whitey with that pink on it. Or maybe this is the hole where the heron got it. Now on the back hook, I didn't do a second color. I guess I could have, but I'm being lazy. When you see this fly finish, it pretty much has enough of the two-tone. So thread the bead on. You want to make sure the bead, you just had a hole big enough that your whatever you're using for your joiner can go through it twice, right? Otherwise, it ain't going to work. And this would be what we'd call a long ass streamer if we did that. So let's make it about as long as the hook, maybe slightly longer. And we're going to thread this through like that, right? Got that hanging there. And then thread it back through the bead. You see, I tell you, this could kind of gives the bead actually acts like an extension, so it's less prone to wrap around. If it's right up against here, it's going to wrap very, very easily. And you can put more than one bead. I'm going to secure this. I want to make sure it's not as tricky with this ring, which is fairly large diameter, but you want it fairly close. I mean, I can pull it up once you got a few thread wraps in. All right. To get the most action of this, if we have a round, if this is round and this is round, it's going to actually move more directions, right? Just a pretty high-tech tool here. Take some narrow forceps or a pair of pliers. You can open it up or even just jam it in there. That's a more rounded circle now. And that's where we want that stiffer material to make it flex more. All right, if we wanted to, you could tie a little fuzz in there to cover the bead. I'm not going to worry about it. Hopefully I'm fishing for really stupid fish. And let's do a belly and a back. Let's do a white belly. And I could do that clump dubbing if I wanted to. I'll just do a really short chunk of rabbit fur on the bottom. And I say really short. This is going to be pretty short. It's going to cover, the hide's going to go from here to here. So here again, I'm going to cut a point. I'll cut it and show you. Let's get a strip that's slightly wider than that. That would work better. It's going to fill in the holes better. And if you wanted to, you could kind of measure this first while it's still intact. So I want to basically go from there to about there, right? That's about the length we have to tie. The first thing we're going to do here, that volatilmeter, this stuff here, the only liability is it doesn't bond to non-porous materials. It only bonds to porous materials. So lead isn't really porous and it doesn't float like in the Monty Python on the Holy Grail, but we want a glue intermediary. And so since I'm always sniffing rabbit fur as I'm actually, it's floating around the room, and you are too, I don't really dub this, but I will do a glue intermediary. I set some dubbing on there and it doesn't have to be tight. I just basically wrap some dubbing on there for the glue to stick to, per se. I get a wider rabbit strip too for the back, just because it's going to make it easier to cover the lead. And I want another chance to cut myself in public. All right.
Ray Dodd says, looking good, Scott.
All right, my man Ray. Hopefully we can do the vets this fall. Kind of miss not having that. That's a good group of guys there. What we're going to do is we're going to tie in our 2 rabbit strips. So I got that point inside the cone. Voila. Point inside the cone from the bottom, and if you wanted to flip it over, if you have a rotary vise, use it. So many people just don't do that. You probably fish it fine like that, right? But then we wouldn't play with as much glue. So let's coat the porous lead. And the thread helps out too. One thing that's pretty critical in this original with the double bunny is if this is flopping around, I'm going to get glue all over the place, right? One thing you do to tame rabbit first, you can get it wet and just touch it and make it, mat down the fur slightly. But if I hold it taut, the hide, then it's a lot easier to hold in place, not having it all over everything. All right. So slip that up in there. If it helps you with your scissors to get in there a little bit easier. And we're going to just kind of get it in place. And I says, remember with this stuff, you can kind of make a mistake like, oh my God, I got it in the wrong spot. You can still get it apart. And technically, you're supposed to let it set like 10 or 15 minutes. If I was making an outfitter's 10, I'd probably worry about that. But for this fly, I'm going to lose anyway. And then I cut this so it actually goes slightly longer than the little ring there. So you kind of, get the light colored part going all the way back, but close enough. And let's add some flash lateral lines down the side. Oh, what color do I want? I think some silver pearlescent combo might be groovalicious. Holographic flashaboo. And then a little crystal flash rainbow. It's kind of like the way the pearlescent and the metallic kind of play off each other. I dropped a couple, that's okay. So I tied this in the middle. This is kind of like a squid of the eye back of there, right? It's a squid. And then pull it over. You can actually tweak it. I mean, the stuff's plastic, right? So if you need to get mean with it and tweak it, you can actually bend it right at the joint. And I like to leave this stuff uneven, and it just looks more natural. And we can be done with the thread. I don't need to finish that off really neatly. I guess you could get really crazy and throw some red gills in there. So we do red with gold eyes. Should we do gold eyes this time? Got the James Bond golden eye. For that fish that's native to the whole Missouri drainage. I don't think it's native to the Platte and the upper, oh, not yellows. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there's only species that was native there before the tailwaters. So these are molded eyes, 7/32. I'm not going to glue these in place. I'm going to actually use some UV. Better living through chemicals. And you see how I'm sticking the eyes up inside the cone? They're much less prone to get broken off that way. I'll take this, or should have that Wyoming whiskey, and a little for my lips and a little bit for the rabbit to hold it in place. Let's grab some UV glue. I got a bunch of UV stuff here. Bought 2 lights. Just put a new battery in my tricked out rechargeable light here. And what the UV glues are is basically, technically they're epoxies that actually set with UV light. There's a certain light spectrums, like the dentist use that blue light stuff for your fillings anymore instead of the old metal stuff as much. I got that big jar here. I think this will work. And this is some Solarez here. This is technically thin, but it's actually thick by now. Or I have big jar of the Flux. I mean the Loon UV knots, since their UV stuff will work. I think it's all pretty similar stuff. What I do here is just squirt some in there, and it'll self-level. Just let it sit down like gravity. I mean, gravity makes you fall down. You might as well use gravity to your advantage sometime, right? If you wanted to have a perfect thing here, let there be light. That's why I brought the second light there. I got to recharge that battery. And if you have a good light, I mean, a lot of setting UV stuff is basically like getting a sunburn. The more power there is and the closer you are to the sun, the more you're going to get burned, right? So the closer you can hold it together, and I just have that there. I could probably just leave that like there. Let's fill on the bottom though, just because it looks a lot nicer. Yeah, that one's a rechargeable one, and I actually had to order a rechargeable battery for it, but I think I hooked it up to my computer to recharge, and then my computer probably went to sleep and didn't charge. Here again, let's self-level. You can sit there with a toothpick and try to manipulate around, which works, but if you didn't have a UV light, you could go out in the sunshine. Probably don't really want to look at this in your eyes. I mean, in the back room there, we got a fingernail cooker for doing your fingernails. That's like sunlight gnarly. But there's the dose double bunny. So you got kind of this articulated double bunny. And the cool thing about that tail technique is, I mean, we're getting all that extra motion here, but it didn't really take any time. And you could literally, this is like, what was that, an extra 30 seconds to do a woolly bugger tail for. But dose double bunny. So you got baby bunny and dose double bunny. Did them kind of the same color. I mean, this color are like chinchilla whites, nice for a whitefish imitation or a shad or a baby trout. I mean, other colors certainly work. Baby cutthroat brown. There's a nice pike saltwater color. That's the color that won the one fly. Olive chinchilla. But it's kind of matching up to whatever. I mean, the integration one there, that black and white works. And probably in dirty water, the black with like a yellow or a ginger belly works as well as anything like that. Combo works in dirty water. So that's what Bunny's been up to for the last 33 years. I'm sure there's some other options out there, but once you have it, they're pretty quick flies. And the Valetairmander, nice thing about that, it's not going to dry out. It's not nasty to work with. That's just Hairline sells. Just a lot of fly shops sell it. You can get it at the hardware store too. But nice and easy to work with. You can actually, there's old Carl's Richards. He was a dentist. Made latex crabs and stuff. You can use the same thing. It's not pure, but my fish aren't going to sue me for getting an infection. So hopefully you learned something. We had some fun. I didn't fry your brain. You know, the glue didn't go through the USB cord and get you.
All right. Awesome show from Chaz. Thanks everyone for your comments and questions and for tuning in. Ken's behind the camera here. He's been helping me out with lights and the camera and everything. So shout out to Ken. Appreciate it. Wyoming whiskey, of course. David's been tuning in. We really appreciate that. Howard's definitely been enjoying the whiskey. Try to get your hands on a bottle if you can, if you live where they distribute it. Roadhouse Brewery was here last week. Max, the head brewer over there, joined us. That was a fun show. And of course, Rep Your Water. They're a awesome brand. Check out some of their stuff. We've got a lot of it in the store here. But we will be back in several weeks here. Everyone's going to go on some spring break trips and enjoy some sunshine and warm weather, because we won't see that probably for another month or two. But we will keep you guys in the loop about what we have planned, and like our page so you can get the updates. And we'll see you guys soon. So thanks again.
We're going to draw for flies this week.
Yeah. You have some you want to give away?
We'll give you those two if we tied tonight.
Cool. Yeah, so drop a comment here in the next couple minutes, and we'll pick a winner and give away some of the original double bunnies and the dose double bunny
And the baby bunny.
And the baby bunny. So leave us a comment here and we'll pick a random winner and send you some flies. All right, thanks guys.
Woohoo.
We'll give people a
Howdy,
second to
ho.
comment.
Lots of wabbits, wily wabbits.